Okay. Take a look at it though. Even with that, I think they're over in height.
All right, the flag
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The workshop meeting of the Ship Bottom Land Use Review Board is now open. The time is 6:30, and the date is June 17th. Upon completion of the workshop meeting, the regular meeting will convene. Both meetings meet the criteria of the Open Public Meetings Act. So, okay, we have the correspondence file going around. It's down this end, the blue file. Does anybody have anything for the workshop? Okay, seeing nothing, we'll move on and we'll start the regular meeting. The meeting of the Ship Bottom Land Use Review Board will come to order. The time is 6:31 p.m. and the date is June 17, 2025. The time, date, and location of this meeting was published in the Beach Haven Times. It was also posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. The next regular meeting of the Ship Bottom Land Use Review Board is scheduled for July 15, 2025. The conduct of this meeting is being recorded so all testimony can be clearly heard. At the appropriate time, the meeting will open to the public for any questions and comments. The maximum time period allowed to present testimony, witnesses, and other professionals are limited to 1 hour and may be extended only at the discretion of the board. The meeting will adjourn at 10 p.m. with no further testimony being taken unless otherwise ordered at the discretion of the board. All cell phones should be silenced at this time. Sarah, will you please call the roll?
Councilman English?
Yeah.
Mr. Fenimore?
Here.
Ms. Schmidt?
Here.
Vice Chairwoman Talon?
Here.
Mr. Basile?
Here.
Councilman Butkus?
Here.
Mr. Zarzasti?
Here.
Mr. Dixon?
Here.
Mr. Bishop?
Here.
Mrs. Valerio?
Here.
And Chairman Yankowski is absent.
Okay, as I said, the correspondence is going around. First, on number 7 is the approval of the minutes of the May 20th meeting, 2025. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of May 20th, 2025.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Okay. Mr. Fenimore?
Approved.
Ms. Schmidt?
Approved.
Vice Chairwoman Talon?
Approved.
Mr. Basile?
Approved.
Mr. Zarzasti?
Approved.
Mr. Dixon?
Approved.
Mr. Bishop?
Approved.
Mrs. Valerio?
Approved.
Okay, I think we're going to do the resolution now. We're going to skip ahead and do the resolution that's tied to the minutes.
Bills list.
What's that?
The bills list.
Bills.
The bills list.
So, the bills list. Okay, I thought we wanted to do the minutes and the resolution together.
Okay.
There was a resolution circulated, I believe, with regard to this. I do think that both councilmen, though, on the resolution, will not be able to vote on the resolution.
We were on after meeting.
Right.
Okay, so the resolution is docket number 2025:02, Fortuna Park LLC, 201-267 West 20th Street, Block 48, Lot 1. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
Do you want to go over it real quick, Joe? Explain it.
Sure.
The resolution. Just a.
Okay, the resolution, obviously, what it is, this is the property that was, I guess, negotiated and sold between the governing body of Ship Bottom and the applicant here. One of the conditions was that there was going to be, there's 23 lots that are being created, 21 were going to be residential. There's 2 lots that they're going to end up owning by the borough of Ship Bottom. I think 1 lot was being transferred to the borough of Ship Bottom with no charge. The second lot was being purchased by the borough of Ship Bottom. There were certain conditions that were contained in the resolution. For instance, there's concerns about the fence. It was a fence that was going to be located, I guess, on the borough's property. The height of the fence was going to be 6 feet, and we were going to give the board engineer discretion to have the fence possibly lowered to 4 feet, depending on how the curb cuts were going to be administered through the development, so that there'd be no site triangle issue. Again, also the color of the fence was going to be agreed upon between the applicant and the borough of Ship Bottom. Also, the location of the trees were going to be decided between the borough and the Borough of Ship Bottom and the applicant based on DEP. I guess the location of where the trees were going to be installed was conditioned on the Department of Environmental Protection. I believe that's essentially the issues, the residential lots, I think essentially that's it. It was a pretty detailed resolution set, but it's really incorporated with the agreement that was entered into between the applicant and the Borough of Ship Bottom. And that's also included in the resolution that's attached as an exhibit.
I do have a comment about the couple last-minute changes we got. One of it, they added trees/shrubs. I don't believe we ever talked about shrubs at any point, and I don't know exactly what that means. I mean, a shrub could be 2 feet tall. So
I think that the applicant had to put trees in. I think that's what it was.
I understood that potentially, I think the way CAFR was looking at it, it could be a combination of trees and shrubs. So they're gonna have to provide a plan that's gonna be approved by CAFR. So it may not all be trees. It may be a combination.
will we see a detail of that, Brian?
I think we should, and I think at some point we will. In order for us to sign, do a final sign off on this and allow the map to be filed, I'd like to see what they're doing.
And the other comment that I have is it says the applicant will provide 4 parking spaces for each new home being developed. And I know we did talk about that, but I specifically asked if 2 of the spaces were going to be in the garage with overhead doors, and they weren't going to enclose that for anything else but except for parking. And it doesn't really say that in the resolution. It just says he'll provide 4 parking spaces for each new home.
I thought we required 3 outside, and we were gonna allow 1 in the garage.
That's not my
I
recollection.
thought that was.
My notes, I think, were was a 2-car garage.
Yeah, it might be a 2-car garage, but I think we said that we were only, I thought we said we were only gonna count 1 in the garage and 3 had to be outside. Maybe I'm wrong. I think that was his intent, I thought.
Well, that would be nice if it was specific in the resolution, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you on that.
I guess I can go back to my notes.
Doesn't our ordinance only permit 1 in the garage to be used, to be counted?
I don't believe it's specified. It may be confusing with another town.
Yeah, maybe. Everybody's got something different.
I know. That might be the township. Did they change their parking recently?
A number of towns have.
Yeah.
It definitely said 4 parking spaces. That's in my notes.
I mean, technically, whether they're in the garage or outside, they have to be available to park.
Right.
So, if they take one of the
My
garages.
notes just say 2-car garage and 2 on the street.
Then fine.
That's what it says.
But basically, you're not gonna be able to use their garage for storage. It has to accommodate a car. Bottom
Yeah,
line.
so they
Okay.
can't take out the overhead door and
Right.
put something
Yep,
else in
correct.
there, and all of a sudden rec room's down there. It's
Correct.
supposed to be for parking, good
Yep.
parking.
Correct. Well, then I think we have it covered, based on what he has in the resolution.
Well, I could change that to make sure it's the 2 in the garage and 2 in the
Right.
driveway. That's not a problem.
Does anybody else have any other comments? I mean, this was a last minute change. I think I got this at, 4 o'clock or something? How did you send this out?
Oh, 3:30, 4 o'clock.
I don't know if everybody checked their email. You don't have to email this in.
Well, I think you have a motion with those two things. The shrubs would be included if the board feels comfortable with the trees and shrubs. And if you feel comfortable with the two-car garage, I'll make that amendment to the resolution.
Is everybody okay with that? Any comments?
That we get to see the plan of the trees and the shrubs.
I'll put that in there.
It was originally all trees.
I do believe you're right.
Mhm.
The trees.
Okay, I'll do that, make that change.
I'll make a motion to approve docket 2025.02 with the recommendations that the tree shrubs be reviewed and the four-car situation is documented in the resolution.
We'll call those.
Okay, Mr. Fenimore?
Approve.
Ms. Schmidt?
Approve.
Vice Chairman Vitale?
Approved.
Mr. Basile?
Approved.
Mr. Zarzasti?
Approved.
Mr. Dixon?
Approved.
Mr. Bishop?
Approved.
Mrs. Valeria?
Okay. I just have a quick statement to make. May the record show that the board voted unanimously approval of the LBI School/Fortuna subdivision application, including Mr. Fenimore. But I'm somewhat confused as to why he would state repeatedly at the Borough Council meeting, the 100-year anniversary on May 29th at the firehouse, that he did not approve this application. He only approved the fence.
What I said was, we didn't approve of the resolution to have the land rezoned. I said that was done by the board and the council and the mayor. The mayor and the council did a redevelopment plan, which we did not have any say in it being rezoned. So I said we approved a fence, basically. We approved curb cutouts, but it was already approved by the council and the mayor. And so the truth did come out.
The application was for a subdivision, so you did approve the subdivision. And I believe Mr. Coronado told us that we could not change anything really with the subdivision. Isn't that right, Mr. Coronado?
Yeah, it was a contract between the Borough of Ship Bottom and the applicant. And, you know, the 23 lots were the design of the project, the 23 lots, the way that the lots were going to be 21 residential, 2 were going to be taken by the Borough of Ship Bottom, that this board didn't have the right to change the lots or the size of the lots or anything that was going to go up. But the board did have control over curb cuts, sidewalks, some of the designs, but essentially it was a contract that was entered into by the borough and the applicant, and the board was kind of bound by it.
Right, but he could have voted no if he was against the application, is not true?
Anybody could have voted for it or against it.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you. I just want a clarification on that. Moving along, right along, the bills list, May 21st to 2025 to June 17th, 2025. Has everybody looked at the bills list?
Yeah.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We do roll call vote?
Councilman English?
Approved.
Mr. Fenimore?
Approved.
Ms. Schmidt?
Approved.
Vice Chairman Vitale?
Approved.
Mr. Basile?
Approved.
Councilman Butkus?
Approved.
Mr. Zarzasti?
Approved.
Mr. Dixon?
Approved.
Mr. Bishop?
Approved.
Mrs. Valeria?
Approved.
Okay. Old business, we have none. New business is docket number 2025:03, Frank and Donna Borland, 300 West 19th Street, Block 50, Lot 1.
That was an entrance.
Yes.
Mr. Raven, let me ask you a question. I see that there's a couple of exhibits here. Are those part of the packet that was entered into?
Yes, they are here.
Okay. Do you have any exhibits that were not part of the packet that need to be marked?
Yes, why don't we mark, for the record, James Raven on behalf of the applicant, Frank and Donna Borland. And there was some discussion over the last week. I did receive contact from a neighbor, Joan McGee, relative to the notice that was sent to the property owners within 200 feet. There was a question as to whether or not the notices were timely and sent within the required time frame as required by the municipal land use law. So I did submit, as we're required, an affidavit to the board stating that we comply with those requirements and send receipts that were stamped by the post office, all the certified mailing receipts, and my position that we did comply with the requirements. I sent a letter to the board this morning attaching with respect to 2 property owners in particular that were raised by Ms. McGee, the tracking information from the U.S. Postal Service website that shows that they were at least one was delivered and a notice was left at the door. So why don't we just mark that as Exhibit A1, which is my letter. Or if you want to mark, would you like me to mark them separately or together?
No, I think it's a package.
A package, yeah. So
it's A1, and how many, what was all the documents?
Right, so it was a letter from me with today's date, and that's June 17, 2025. The attachments were email correspondence between myself and Joan McGee, and tracking information with respect to Ms. McGee's mailing, and the Pietruses was the other neighbor. So that was the entire package.
So I guess it's 7 pages altogether? Is that what, I want to make sure that?
Nine pages total.
9. Just for the board's edification, I know Sarah brought it to my attention that there was an issue. It's pretty clear that the law, and you can go by the Bible, Mr. Cox's Bible as with regard to it, but also with the statute, it's pretty clear that the way that it's written, you can mail, all you have to do is mail within 10 days prior. The law's been pretty clear for the last 75 years, believe it or not, that it doesn't care whether or not they received it, just that it was placed into the mail. There's no requirement that they have to receive it. There is an issue if you don't do it within the 10 days, though, because then it says that the person can't be prepared or doesn't have an opportunity to be prepared. But in Mr. Raven's defense, as it goes all the way through, he did mail everything on June 6th, and it's pretty clear that when you count the days, and there's an example in Cox, especially on page 247, which says that if you mail something on March 14th, then on March 4th, you're good for March 14th. Obviously, he mailed something on June 6th. It was good for the 16th. This is the 17th. There's more than sufficient notice that goes through. So essentially, just for the edification of the board, one is that all you have to do is put it in the mail. There's no requirement that they receive it. And in this instance, this woman did know that there was a matter here. She chose not to show.
She may be here. I'm not certain.
Yeah, I know. Is Ms. McGee here?
No, she had a prior commitment.
Okay. Well, you know, I tried to reach out to Ms. McGee, had a telephone number, and I was certainly willing to email her the law and the information with regard to it. She never got back to me, but she's left to whatever her, you know, to her legal ramifications. But it's pretty clear that the applicant can move forward, and that, from my legal opinion, they have complied with the law.
Thank you. So with respect to the application itself, the subject property is located at 300 West 19th Street. It's located at the southwest corner of Barnegat Avenue and West 19th Street. It's currently developed as a single-family dwelling. Some of the board members may remember it was about a year ago we were here with a prior application on the same property. And the property is currently developed with a single-family dwelling. The applicant's looking to demolish the existing dwelling and construct a new single-family dwelling. The prior application was looking to renovate the existing structure, and this would be to demolish that one completely and build a new structure. And what makes this property a little bit challenging is the fact that it's a corner lot that's 40 feet wide, and in that circumstance, we have to maintain 15 feet to both streets, and then we're left with one side yard, one rear yard, and that side yard needs to maintain a setback of at least 10 feet. So if we were to comply with all of the ordinances in place, we would only be able to construct a 15-foot wide house, and if we were to comply with that, with the rear and front yard setback, we wouldn't even be able to come close to maxing out the 35% coverage. And you know, it is a lot that's just over 4,000 square feet as far as the upland portion of the lot. So it's not an undersized lot. It's really just a factor of its location as a corner lot in this area. There are existing nonconformities with respect to the existing structure, and we're improving on all of those with the proposed home. And there are still two variances that we're requesting. One with respect to the setback to Barnegat Avenue, and the other is with respect to the side yard setback, which is the westerly setback. So Dan Wheaton prepared the variance plan. He's going to provide testimony regarding all of the variances we're seeking. He also is the architect of record and prepared the floor plans and elevations. And then Frank Borland's going to provide some testimony as well. And first I'll call Dan Wheaton.
I'm going to raise your right hand. You promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Need to state and spell your name for the record, please.
Daniel Wheaton, W-H-E-A-T-O-N. I'm the owner of 1010 Architecture. I'm a registered architect and professional planner in the state of New Jersey. I've appeared before this board numerous times.
I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And actually, Mr. Wheaton, before you get started, one thing I neglected to mention too, Sarah did provide me with a copy of an additional resolution, which I don't believe I had with the prior application, from 1986 to construct a single-family dwelling that had coverage in that resolution of 31.6%. I think that's the existing home. If that's the case, there was some type of addition since then, because the coverage now is just over 43%. But just wanted to let the board know there is also a resolution from 1986 as well. And Mr. Wheaton, with respect to the variance plan, that was prepared by you, that's correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, if you could just give an overview for the board, how the site's currently developed and what we're proposing.
Okay, I'd first like to point out that this, as was pointed out, was heard before the board last year. This is a different application, obviously, but it's also a different homeowner. So that this is not the same applicant as the last application. It's a completely different application with a completely different applicant. So I think that's important. As was stated, this is a corner lot, 40 foot by just over 100 feet deep. Obviously, when you measure the bulkhead, we have roughly 0.6 feet more, so it's 100.6 feet deep, so just slightly over 40 by 100. The existing nonconformities are, so we have an existing front yard setback nonconformity along 19th Street, which is 14.8 or 15 feet required. The front yard setback along Barnegat, which the building itself is 5.1 where 15 is required, but they actually have a bay window that projects into that, which is 3.8. Listed 5.1, but the bay window is even closer than that at 3.8 feet. The side yard setback on the westerly side is 4.5 feet, where currently 10 feet is required. The rear yard setback is 20 feet required, but we only have 15.6 feet to the stairs in the backyard. And the existing building coverage is 43.7%, where 35 is required, so we're 8.7% over the current building coverage for the lot. So the house is very oversized for the lot as it stands now. One thing that's interesting, I did an analysis of all the corner lots from 9th Street south for residential properties. And of the 40 lots that were surveyed, only 7 are 40 feet or skinnier in any direction, either width or depth. So of 40, this is only one of 7 which are really undersized for a corner property, which affects this kind of uniquely. And as Mr. Raven pointed out, we can really only legally build a 15-foot wide building, kind of a row home setup, if we were to maintain a 10-foot side yard and a 15-foot front yard along Barnegat Avenue. So the maximum coverage of that is approximately a little bit less than 24%. That's to legally meet within the setbacks. That's the maximum building coverage you could get to with this property. So what the application is proposing is obviously a new single-family home. What we're really asking for is simply to allow the house to be built to the existing building coverage for a 40 by 100 lot. So we designed this thinking of the building coverage and try to make it as small as possible and have the least impact on the setbacks. So what we're proposing, we are actually removing building coverage. So we're going down from 43.7% down to just under 35%, which is almost a 9% reduction in the building coverage. We're removing the front yard setback non-conformity along 19th Street, so increasing that. We're maintaining the 15-foot minimum required setback. And we're removing the rear yard setback non-conformity. So we're removing all three of those. And the rear setback, we are actually exceeding the setback. So it's not hard to do. So the open decks are 24 feet setback from the bulkhead. But the first floor living wall is actually set back 34 feet, and the second floor wall is 31 feet. So we're really reducing it greatly from the building that's currently there. It's just, instead of having solid wall, the rear portion of our building is now deck, as you can see if you look at the plans. So it's a far greater distance from the bulkhead, and it's more open along the waterfront. So those are, as I said, their building line is about 20-ish feet, and our closest building line is 31 feet. So we're almost 11 feet further back to actual wall than the current building exists. So we are asking for 2 variances, which are existing nonconformities, but we are improving both of those. So the one is the front yard setback along Barnegat. As I stated before, the building itself is 5.1 with the bay window existing at 3.8. We are proposing a 10-foot setback, so increasing the setback by almost 5 feet, but it's 10 feet where 15 feet is required. And then the side yard setback, which was required to be 10 feet. We're proposing getting rid of the old 4.5 feet and increasing it to 5 feet. Now, something that's important about the 5-foot minimum requirement is the existing building that's there does not meet the fire regulations. When you're less than 5 feet to the property line, you have to fire protect your wall on both sides, inside and out, to protect your building from your neighbors if the neighbor has a fire, and protect their building in case you're on fire. And the existing building does not meet those fire standards. So the new building will be at 5 feet, which exceeds the fire standards, and we will have a closed-off soffit, so fire can't go up into the attic, which the current building would permit if there was a fire between the buildings. So the new building will increase fire safety, which the current building does not provide for. So those are the only variances we are seeking, is the front yard setback along Barnegat and the side yard setback as stated. We are improving what is already there, but we still need those setbacks. One other thing, the existing building, while the ground floor is above the flood, the floor itself does not actually exceed the flood regulations. So the floor system itself is in the flood zone. So the insulation and the wood that's in there is not of a waterproof material. So while the floor itself is above the design flood, the building does not meet the current design flood standards. So that our new building will obviously be fully raised and fully meet the new, the current design flood standards. We have oriented the house, as we talked about, to try and be as open to the water as possible. One thing the client wanted, but it also is good for the neighborhood, is to try and increase the distance from the water for light air, open space, to try and provide more view corridor for not just ourselves, but the neighbors. And we are seeking these variances. So remember, we're removing 3 variances of the existing building and improving the 2, but the 2 variances we're requesting are going to be asked for under both the C1 criteria. The C1 is C1A for the particular narrowness, shallowness, or shape of the property or building. The variance that we're requesting is really a product of a 40-foot lot being on a corner. As I stated before, you can only legally build a 15-foot wide building, which is not in keeping with the neighborhood. I don't think that's what anyone wants to see on this property, especially here being such a prominent feature at the end of Barnegat, which is a nice wide thoroughfare. Barnegat being extra wide, 100-foot right-of-way. But something else that's unique about Barnegat is from the street line to the property line is also greater than most streets. So I want to point out that from the street, the curb line on Barnegat to the property line is actually just over 20 feet. Whereas if you compare that to the 19th Street side, it's only 12 feet. So the street has a much wider field than the property allows for. The property actually looks like it's a 50-foot wide property, but it's not because of that great public right-of-way that is not technically owned by the applicant. So what we look for when judging a hardship of this type, there's two main court cases. One is Gresham versus Gash, which the courts concluded that the applicant is entitled to build a house which is comparable to the surrounding neighborhood. So that's what we're looking to build. We're not looking to build something overly sized, right? We're reducing the existing coverage by almost 9%, but we're asking that we can build to the building coverage. If this lot was one next door without the setbacks, we'd be able to build to a 35% building coverage, which is what we're asking to build to. And the second one is land versus the Zoning Board of Adjustment. And it's two things that are very important. That the case law says the courts have guided us as to how to seek variances and what are required. The courts concluded that an applicant should not be required to reduce size below what is considered fairly typical in order to reduce the variances sought. And further into that, the board should consider whether the structure proposed is so unusually large in size that the structure itself, rather than the conditions of the property affecting the design, cause the need for a variance. And really, this being a corner lot is what's required. This house meets all the requirements for a 40-foot lot that's not a corner setback. It's really the corner that has pushed us into the side yard variance requirements. And then we can also follow this under, we are seeking this variance under a C2 criteria. The general idea is where the benefit outweighs the negative. And I think the benefits of this are greatly outweighed the negative because of everything we're removing from the building. We are reducing this thing in footprint in every direction. And as I stated before, we're reducing the coverage by almost 9% to get it down to a legal coverage size for this area. And I don't think that can be understated, just how big the existing house is. I also would like to say I think my design is prettier than the other one. I know it's a little self-serving, but the other building is essentially a giant roof that runs the whole length of the site. So there's not much interest or articulation along the front where this has different roof lines, decks, doorways, recesses, and other articulations that I think would just make for a nicer design. And I think, as stated, one thing we can look for is that does this further the purposes of zoning, right? This is sort of standard for a D variance, but we can look to that guidance for seeking hardship and C2 variances. And I do think under A, this encourages municipal action to guide appropriate use or development of all lands in the state in a manner which promotes public health, safety, moral, and the general welfare. So one thing that's very important, as I stated, is the fire safety that this will do. It's a more modern building, so it's more energy efficient also. And this building will be fully raised, so it's not in, there's no flood zone or flood conformity issues, which is also B, to secure safely from flood and other natural disasters. So this will meet the FEMA guidelines, but something else that's important. This site is now being raised to comply with the town's lot filling ordinance, which the previous site did not have. So we're filling this lot, which helps secure the property and the surrounding area from floodwaters as the floodwaters rise and protect us from storms, providing light, air, and open space. This is, as stated before, much smaller in footprint and with decks along the back that allow for view through it. So reducing it by almost 9% compared to the previous, reducing the footprint almost 6 feet in width and what was it, 8 or 9 feet in depth, and removing the front yard setback and the rear yard setback variances that non-conformities which currently exist. And then it just promotes and establishes the appropriate densities. It's a single-family home that is comparable to all others that are being built now. It's under the building coverage, as stated previously, which is typical of the surrounding area. And this would be a typical house on a regular 40-foot wide lot. And because of this, I think the application can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good. I think this is a better project than what's there now by removing all the other nonconformities. And for the same reason, I think this can be granted without substantial impairing the intent or purpose of the master plan or zoning. To conclude, I think it's a much better project and application than what is currently there. We're solving a lot of problems, we're removing a lot of nonconformities, and we're making something that is comparable to the other 40-foot lot properties in the area. So that's all.
And Mr. Whedon, with respect to the height, we're not seeking any variances there. We're in conformity with the height requirement?
Correct. We are in conformity. No variances sought for the height.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Whedon. Any questions?
I have a question. On the ground level, you have a two-car garage. You also have a 25 by 25, I'm assuming storage room?
Yes.
Would they be willing to leave that unfinished as it's supposed to be and not used for a future rec room or not be conditioned in any way?
Well, that's not
Here?
permitted, so.
Well, guess what? I'd like to see that and if it's approved in the resolution.
Neither is speeding.
Yeah.
So, yes, I think that's fair, because I can't draw that, I can't design that, it's not
I
permitted
would
by
like
the
to
building.
see it on the plans that this area remain unfinished, unconditioned space for storage only.
So would you like, I think the only way I can really show is just labeled as unfinished storage, would that, for my plans at least, would that be adequate?
So what's the size of that room?
25 by 25, or 23 by 25, I'm sorry, 23. It's a big room.
Thank you.
And then the pool, I can see this becoming,
And I'm sure everyone's aware, but you're not permitted by the building code to finish any room that's below the floodplain. So that is not only, it wouldn't, I don't know if it's a town ordinance specifically, but it's a construction code issue, which is statewide.
Yeah, there would already be a deed restriction in place too that sets forth those
we know
requirements.
how that works, Jim.
Right, no, I
You're on a
understand.
garden house tour, you
Right.
go through these houses and you're like, I can't
No, I
believe what I'm
understand,
seeing.
and we have no objection to that being in the resolution. That's not a problem at all.
So I could put in there, no living areas permitted.
Right, remain unfinished.
Any further questions?
Does anybody have any questions for Dan? Sorry, David for talking. No?
The parking is different now. Is that, I mean, because now they're parking on Barnegat, not on 19th Street. Like as far as the drive, is that to be like?
Right, that's not a problem, right?
No,
I didn't think
not
so.
at
I
all.
think it's probably actually better.
Probably better having to pull
Because
it
they're
off
backing
on
out
the
on
corner of
19. And is there a stop sign right there?
Yes,
It is. Yeah, it's much, much better parking.
Wait, that's a blinking stop sign, isn't it?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Barnegat Avenue, is that a county road?
Yes.
Yes.
So do you need, any approvals from Ocean County planning?
Not for a variance.
Not for single family residence.
Okay.
Yeah, if it were a site plan, then we would need county planning board approval, but not for this.
Do you impact their site plan?
So the sunshine is shown on the plan, and we do not impact, the parking is outside the site.
Anybody else?
All right, thank you, Ms. Wheaton. Next, I'll call Frank Borland.
I'm gonna raise your right hand. You promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
I do.
And you just state and spell your name for the record, please.
Frank Borland, C-O-R-L-A-N-D.
Thank you.
And Mr. Borland, you and your wife Donna own the subject property, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And why don't you give a little background and explain your reasoning for this application?
So, we are new to Ship Island, but we're not new to Long Beach Island. We were in Surf City since 1998. That's our first house. And we never intended originally from that time, 98 to maybe for the last 3 years, to reside here permanently, but we've changed. And if we were going to do that, we wanted to build a new home. Further to that, we lived in Surf City, and we found ourselves coming to Ship Island. found ourselves coming to Ship On for a lot of reasons. One, for the commerce. There's a lot more in Ship On than there is in Surf City. And over the years, with all due respect to Surf City, a lot of that's been taken away. So we do find that the boulevard is better for us in the way of whether it be restaurant shopping, ice cream stores, whatever, just family type oriented stuff. So when we decided to build, we said we want to be in Ship On. So we approached a friend of ours, Matt Carabedian, and asked him, if you find a piece of property in Ship On that is bayfront, would you let us know? And we asked that in early 2024. And I believe in late 2024, this property came available. And so we did purchase it in December of 2024 with, the hopeful anticipation that we would be able to build a home for ourselves to retire to. That's where we are now. That's why we're here in this room before the board. We appreciate your hearing the application. Our properties are very well maintained and we're good neighbors. So.
Any questions for Mr. Borland?
Okay.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, that's all I have. That concludes our application. Thank you.
Any discussion, board members? Oh, open to the public. All right. Who would like to make a motion to open to the public?
I'll make that motion.
Hey, cheat sheet. Anyone second it?
Second.
Sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
This application is now open to the public. If you want to say something, please step forward and state your name and be sworn in.
Or have any questions of any of the people who testify?
Yeah, okay.
Want to raise your right hand, please? Can you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And I need to state spelling it for the record, please.
Dana Conway, Danaway, 1901 East Bay Terrace. So I just wanted to say again, I was up at the last application, and we have no problem in the community with anybody rebuilding or renovating. Obviously, work has to be done to that home, and we would love that. My only concerns, again, is a parking thing. Everyone knows the area that we're talking about. Also, just as far as the setback from the front, 19th Street, our house is right across the street. In our master, on the deck, in the bedroom up above, we have a straight line down 19th Street to the bay, and we have a view. We get sunset like in the winter, not when it's nice to be out, but we do have a view, so I don't know that that impacts for anything, but I just wanted you to know. I really trust everybody up here. No one has more experience as far as height requirements, variances, the law, what's allowed in Ship On. You guys have had so much experience since Sandy of constant rebuilding and renovation going on. So I just hope that, being consistent, you're looking out for the community and making sure, especially with what we're gonna have for the next 3 years behind us, that again, it's something that really fits into our neighborhood. Thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing nobody, does someone make a motion to close?
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry. This was too quick. Quick on the draw.
I'm going to raise your right hand. You promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
I do.
Need to state and spell your name for the record, please.
Yeah, it's Dennis Hager, and my address is 1907 East Bay Terrace.
Mr. Hager, could, just because it's a recording here, can you spell your last name for the record?
Hager.
Thank you.
My question is on the overall structure height. The building height is per code 16 whatever, 32 feet from the center of the street. And from the microscopic copy that I had downloaded from the web, I was another person that didn't receive the, we never got the registered voter sheet or anything. It said that 19th Street was chosen because that was the lower of the two crowns.
Yes,
It was
correct.
measured from, okay. So there's, if it's 32 feet from the center of road, plus you get to 20 inches, which is 1.75 5 feet. So you get 20 inches buffer added onto that. That brings us in just under 34 feet. And unless I'm really misreading something, I'm showing an elevation on one of the renderings that I
Yeah.
can show you.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
37.27.
Yeah, the top.
Yeah, okay, so I was a little confused.
Okay, so as a part of the lot filling ordinance, the height is no longer measured from the street. So you take that street center line to 3.25, I believe, and then that counts your 20 inches up, right? And that you have to fill the property to. Then the height is actually taken from the slab. So the slab comes up 4 inches to prevent rain. So that is where it goes. So the height is actually taken from 5.25 feet. So 5.25 plus 32 feet.
So if we start, I'm not going to beat this horse to the submission, but if we start at ground zero,
Yes.
which is the center of the street, the 4 inches plus the 20 inches comes out to even 2 feet, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm still not connecting between 34 feet and 37 feet. Now, maybe I'm missing something.
No, I don't think so.
Great, now,
Thank you.
And what's the elevation of the slab, Mr. Reed?
5.25. So that's what we measured from. So
so that's 5.25 from what? What's it in reference?
So that's all in reference to the essentially sea level. It's in the navigation, the North American Vertical Datum
I
88.
get that, but the ordinance says that it's measured from the crown of the street.
So yes, the way we do it, you take the crown of the road, you move the dirt up. So the dirt gets set at 4.93, which is 20 inches above the center line of the road, and then the slab goes up 4 inches from there. So that's how we did the math. So it's 5. So the way we do it to show it to meet is 5.25 plus 32. So 32 plus the 5 equals 37.25, and we're 37.17. So essentially 1 inch below. So.
All right, so my final question, if you don't know, that's fine. If you were to superimpose the proposed property's highest point with what is sitting there now?
Yes.
Without any machinations with any grades or any of that sort of thing, how do they compare?
So the new building is approximately 5 feet 3 inches taller than the previous one.
Okay. So in other words, the if I were two birds, one sitting on the new house and one sitting on the existing house.
Correct.
The one's, look, about 5 feet tall, higher than the other.
That is correct, yes.
All right, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
So that's all I have. You guys don't have a problem with that.
Thank you.
Thanks for the clarification.
Is there anybody else? Final call, last call. Okay. Have a motion to close? So moved. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the meeting is now closed to the public, and we're open for discussion of the board members. Unless I missed something else.
Joanne?
Oh,
Do we need sidewalks on this?
Do we
On
get what?
19th Street, Barnegat, will we be needing sidewalks on this house?
Right?
Unless Barnegat Avenue requires them,
doesn't.
19th Street doesn't.
I think
Not-
it's just central and.
Just central Long Beach Boulevard and anything east
And
of
east
Long
of-
Beach Boulevard.
Yeah, they're not required.
The only thing I just thought about, what about that alignment on the bay front? Is that something
I
that
don't think
plays
that's an
into-
issue for this house because where it's located, if you look at the adjoiner,
The house next door.
I don't think there's any issue with that.
Yeah, if you
No,
go.
it's not a house to the west of them, there's the street from the house.
Right. Yeah.
Mr. Ray, I have a question.
It's a two or not very close.
I just,
You can look straight down to
Yeah, yeah, it's not an issue based on where they join
okay,
lines.
just throwing it out there.
You say you could look straight down to where was that?
all the way to that new house that's now on the end.
You know, the new house on the end that sticks out in front of everything?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, the same house? Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Rowan, I know you're not here requesting a variance for height, but how does the height compare to the other houses here? 'Cause now you're saying you're going to be at 37 feet in height. How does that compare with the other houses in the neighborhood?
That I don't know, I don't have a survey of that, and the 37 is above sea level, right, so we're still.
I understand you guys aren't asking for that. I was just curious.
I imagine we're taller, but I can't say.
Can I make one comment? The 37 is an elevation.
Yes.
And you have to subtract the 3.26 from top of curb. So the house is really 33.91 feet above the center of the road. It's not 37 feet. So I just want to explain that to the public too. We're talking numbers here, but you've got to subtract the elevation of the street from the elevation of the height. And that gives you the height. And with the 20-inch fill at top of slab, you're at 33.91, not 37. So you're not another 4 or 5 feet above that, so.
And according to print, the actual house height is
It's
31.11.
31%.
Yeah.
Right, from the top of slab, which is 2 feet above the road. So,
I know people get confused between elevations and
between,
heights.
I just wanted to clarify that. We're not talking about 37-foot height. We're talking 33 and change.
So I have a question up front.
Yes.
The gentleman, Mr. Hager, if he was talking about the birds are not 5 feet apart, they're only 2 feet
2
apart.
feet.
Okay, so I just.
Birds are 2 feet.
Well, they might be above the existing roof line.
What?
He was referring to the existing roof line of the existing house. It's
Right.
lower than what this is.
Right, I just want to make sure that, because there was an implication that it was 5 feet difference.
Well, the birds are 2 feet lower now.
Okay, I just,
Something like
if
that.
that helps, Mr. Hager.
Is there any more discussion? Would anybody like to make a motion?
Yeah, they had me at hello. I'll make a motion that we approve this. This is a house that fits the lot, not like the previous application. So I make a motion to approve with the restriction on the storage room.
Excuse me, Ed. I'll second it. He's second.
Okay.
I don't know if you heard it or not.
No, you didn't. Okay, six. Roll call vote?
Okay, Councilman English?
Approved.
Mr. Fenimore?
Approved.
Ms. Schmidt?
Approved.
Vice Chairman Gonzalez?
Approved.
Mr. Lucio?
Approved.
Councilman Burgess?
Approved.
Mr. Rosasti?
Approved.
Mr. Dixon?
Approved.
And Mr. Bishop?
Okay, application approved.
Thank you.
Yeah, that had me, I think the height had me. Well, yeah, but here's the thing, the county, that's our side, 15 by 30. The county is 10 by 10. And it's a last thing, I agree, I agree.
He said unless you had part 33 inches.
One of those cloud.
I recognize him.
Just gotta
We're moving on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good evening.
Night.
I understand it now, but will I be 3 weeks?
Moving on to the business of the board. This is the housing element and fair share plan.
Cameron?
Hey everybody, Cameron McLeod, Gibbons, DC. I am the borough's redevelopment and affordable housing council. Next to me is the esteemed John Berry, professional planner with Harry Grill and Associates. John is the borough's professional planner with regard to affordable housing issues and redevelopment issues. John put together the plan that has been on file with the board for about 2 weeks now. And what we're here tonight to discuss, go over, and ask for your blessing on is a proposed update to the housing element and fair share plan for the borough. Let me give you a quick synopsis of how we got to where we are. And this should help us contextualize kind of where we've been, where we're going, all that kind of fun stuff. For years, the borough had always dallied, I think is the best way to put it, with the idea of working with the Council on Affordable Housing. We'd submitted plans into COA over in Trenton. We got comments back on those saying, yep, no, everything's good, but never took that additional step of saying, okay, fine, let's go ahead and actually secure our approvals and certifications to go through that whole process. As the process has become more and more intense over the years, and there's been a stronger focus on development in unmet need communities, development of environmentally constrained properties, and the essentially always looming threat of builder's remedy litigation, more and more municipalities have been encouraged, both by virtue of statute and case law, to engage in the process. And that process is now run by something called the Affordable Housing Dispute Resolution Program. The township to your south, I think all of the boroughs to your north, and the borough to your south as well, all are engaged in the process currently, along with, I think, 370-something others within the state of New Jersey, to go through and have essentially a blessing made of their affordable housing compliance. This is all by virtue of a state statute that was adopted about 1.5 years ago. And as part of that statute, municipalities had to, as of January 30th of this year, adopt a resolution endorsing and selecting a certain number as to their obligation. SHPON went through and did that. The governing body addressed and endorsed a resolution authorizing me to file on your behalf a declaratory judgment action with the court saying, hey, this is our number. And we went to the judge. The judge said, yep, that's your number. You calculated it correctly and in conformance with the statute. And that released John to do his work. John's work essentially goes through and does an update to a portion of the master plan. I'll let him describe kind of what that process entails and what's in it. But at the end of that comes something called the fair share plan. Essentially, how are you going to satisfy whatever need may exist, unmet or otherwise, within the municipality? And we've got a proposal for that, which shockingly mirrors exactly what we proposed a year ago as to how the borough should be satisfying its third round obligation then and its fourth round obligation now. So, Joe, I will ask if you could swear, dear Mr. Berry, and I'll let him take over from there.
Want to raise your right hand? You promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, self you got?
I do.
I need to state, spell your name for the record.
Sure, John Barrett, B-A-R-R-E-E. I'm a licensed professional planner and work for a firm Higher Roll Associates, as Cameron mentioned in the introduction. The plan that we have before us this evening is relatively simple as these things go, which is nice for the borough and nice for all of us. Cameron gave us a good overview on the legal side of things and the process. That number, the target number that we had in the borough for the fourth round is 44 units of prospective need. Prospective need is a 10-year period that begins this July 1st, so from 2025 to 2035. We're meant to plan for the opportunity to construct affordable housing or other mechanisms, which we'll get into in a moment. But that 44-unit number is this high top-line number that was adopted by resolution back in January and filed by Cameron with the program that he mentioned. So what does a number like that mean for a place that has no vacant land and is largely environmentally constrained due to the flood hazard regulations and other factors? Well, it means we go through a process that's called a vacant land adjustment. We analyze the existing parcels in town, look at the tax maps, look at the tax records, look at environmental factors, and we come to a conclusion that there are no parcels available that would generate a substantial number of residential units were they to be developed, because they're either environmentally constrained and precluded from larger scale residential development in most cases, or they're not vacant and available because they're owned by people who have houses on them or businesses on them or pieces of municipal property that have municipal functions. So we're left with, after we go through that exercise, what's called a realistic development potential. And in this case, we did that exercise. We did it last year as well when the third round plan was adopted. This is our fourth round that we're beginning now. The vacant land adjustment returned a realistic development potential of 0. So based on the process and the rules that we go through, we're not talking about the ability to tear down one house and build another house in its place like the application you just heard, because that's not generating enough critical mass to create any affordable housing units. But it does lead into the other mechanism that we have to consider for addressing the obligation. Since we have no realistic development potential and the constraints on the island and the various factors really make it not our most desirable place to try to construct affordable housing. There's no land. The land that is available is extremely expensive compared to some other places, so there's a number of factors that would make it very challenging to build any volume of affordable housing. But we have to do something so that we can show that we're making an effort, and that if there is a situation that arises where there's an opportunity to assist low and moderate income households, that the borough has a plan put in place for that, and that's really what we're talking about. So the mechanism that we identified in the plan is the same thing we identified in the third round plan, is to institute a development fee ordinance. Currently, and for many years, there is a statewide non-residential development fee ordinance. So any non-residential development that increases the assessed value of a piece of property has to pay 2.5% of that change. And if a town doesn't have a local trust fund, that money just gets sent straight to the state. It's collected and sent to the state. It's used in the statewide affordable housing trust fund that is able to help finance certain projects here, there, and everywhere. So by establishing a local development fee ordinance and a local trust fund, any of those development fees can be captured and retained at the municipal level. So in this case, the borough can retain those funds and use them for a variety of programs. So in addition to the non-residential fee, there's also a smaller, typically residential development fee ordinance, usually 1 or 1.5%. And again, this is not something that you own a house, you sit there, this is not a new line item on your tax bill. This is if you are going to tear down a house and build a new house, the change in the value, or if you're going to make a substantial addition to an existing home, the change in the value is where that development fee gets calculated. The borough collects that money during the construction application process, when you apply for building permits and then when you close out the project. And then it's held in a trust fund, and it can be used for a variety of things. It can be used for rehabilitation for households that have low and moderate incomes. If you have a qualified household that meets the different income thresholds, they can get assistance for rehabilitation projects. It can be used for, if there is an opportunity to develop affordable housing, it can be used to help with infrastructure or acquisition costs or construction. So if somebody wanted to build a small group home for veterans or something like that, there would be an ability to help defray some of those costs. It can be used to convert existing market units to be restricted affordable units, which is probably less likely in the context of the borough, but is one of the options that's available. It can be used for affordability assistance for low and moderate income households if they need down payment assistance to get an apartment, if they need utility bill assistance because they're struggling. So it can be used for a variety of those things, along with administrative expenses to defray costs for professionals like us so that the borough doesn't have to foot that bill. So when we're doing affordable housing related work for the borough, that trust fund can be used to pay for some of those expenses as well. So The mechanism, we're not proposing any new zoning, we're not proposing any specific construction projects here. We're really not anticipating that there's going to be a lot of opportunity to build any volume of affordable housing units, but we are proposing to establish that trust fund at the local level so that when development happens and money comes in, it can be used for projects in the future if they arise. And doing so, we believe, will satisfy the borough's obligation, keep it relatively simple, not have to worry about any of the rezoning that a lot of towns are going through right now. I'll note that Cameron forwarded some typo identifications that I've noted and will revise for the final version. I also found a couple of other ones, but we'll make sure that things are cleaned up and tidied up tomorrow when plans are ready to be filed with the program. But unless anyone has any questions, I think I've said enough.
Quick one, that evaluated tax, or whatever you want to call it, is that just on the structure or the land and the structure?
That's just so it's on the structure. It's on the increased value if you make
of the structure.
Right.
Thank you.
Is there a cap on that number?
I'm sorry.
Is it a percentage of the something like 30% or 50% of the value that triggers that?
No.
So the way they're written, and originally the residential fee and the non-residential fee came out of the same place. The language says it's any increase in the equalized assessed value of the improvements. So if you're increasing it $10,000 or $2 million, you know, it's a percentage of whatever that delta is.
So you have to hit a certain threshold of what the new addition is going to be.
Right. Now there may be, and I'll be pretty clear about this, those provisions, these provisions that John's talking about, relate only to substantial additions and new construction. In fact, there are typically carve-outs that exist for reconstruction, rehabilitation, what's the other one? There's another one that I'm not remembering. And anyway, if it's essentially an interior refit, that's not going to trigger. But if you're going through and actually putting, say, another floor on the house, they can do it.
Thank you.
Is there a cap on the number?
No, it's a percentage. So if you build a $10 million house, it's a percentage.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the total that would go to the state. Say, if you come up with a number of $50 million, it goes to the state.
No,
You can't keep on going.
Yeah, it's based on the development stops and nothing's coming in. If development booms and a lot's coming in, then a lot's coming in. It's a percentage of the activity.
So your plan says you need a development fee ordinance, but it also says you need a spending plan.
Right.
So what if you have a spending plan and you don't spend any of the money, then what happens?
Well, then, basically the way this process works, we have these 10-year rounds. And so there's an obligation to report each year on the activity, and in the past there had been a midpoint review, looking at kind of what has happened halfway through the round. And at that point, if nothing has happened, then we may need to revisit something, or we just keep on if there's no one giving us a hard time.
John, isn't that the term money grab?
Yeah.
What's that?
For the state.
Yes.
Essentially what will happen is that at 5 years, 6 years down the road where the fund has not been touched, and all of a sudden they decide that, well, it's a good idea that they need to grab some money from.
So you'll remember this from 2014, 2015. The state actually tried this, right? And instituted litigation affirmatively against a number of municipalities. Chief among them was, Monroe was up there, but I want to say it was a shore community by Grain St. either Anteloking or it was an Antelope. Might have been Marlboro.
It wasn't Manalogan, because I'm there.
I think it was Marlboro.
I went to Marlboro. But Marlboro had $10 million in their trust fund. Hadn't spent a dime of it. And the way the Fair Housing Act was written originally, it was supposed to have a period that said, once rules were adopted, there was a 4-year period after which the money grab was supposed to become a mechanism that would just happen. Well, the rules were never adopted. So there was litigation that was going in the appellate division, and the appellate division said, yeah, you're right, the rules were never adopted, so the time never started. But, we're just going to say the time starts now. So now, if that money's not spent or committed to spending, and that's the key. The money has to be committed to spending, so that means the adoption of this spending plan that John's referencing. If that commitment is not made in 4 years of the date on which the money's collected, then the money gets money grabbed or transferred. So it can sit in this account for quite a period of time, assuming that there's a realistic opportunity that's being created by virtue of, or we know of an opportunity that may be created by virtue of that accounting system.
And so, without speaking too much, what I'm really saying is, if you don't spend the money, it could end up in Newark or Camden or someplace else that has come, and that was the issue of the term money grab.
Well, back in the day, wasn't it that you could actually have your assigned things transferred to an area that may accommodate like public transit and all this stuff? And that to me really actually made sense. When you did away with it, I was like,
sorry, your question? That's good.
That's why it's no longer.
Right.
Yes, that's true.
So RCA's, there are no regional contribution agreements.
Well, another question, could that money be used to build housing for temporary workers?
It's an interesting question. It's not expressly permitted under the statute. But there's definitely a provision and a gist that would say if you have issues, say, with overcrowding, right? That it could go toward mitigating that, particularly for persons who are of low to moderate income. So were you to think, hey, there are people who are working in more menial labor positions over the course of the summer, there may be an opportunity to say, hey, can we defray that or build housing to help accommodate them? It'd be an interesting project to look into how and whether we can make something like that work. But I think that's something that we could look at.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting idea and a great suggestion as far as, for towns, towns along the island here. There's certainly a need for that sort of seasonal housing, so we'll explore it.
Yeah, Asbury Park got into trouble once long ago for trying to do things like that, but that was long ago. So, and it was Asbury Park. So, Kate made it too. I lived there for a while. I digress.
I have one quick question. Sure. This plan tonight, does the council also have to vote on it?
So
I
can't
will
vote.
recuse myself.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Well,
Mr. English cannot vote.
Well, so it's actually not what you would do at the council level is endorse it. It's not an appeal from this body. It's not a conflict or anything else. You're both duly appointed to the board, so there's no issue there. Though if you want to, it's a matter of
I think
covering your keister, you're welcome to recuse, but there's no legal reason not to.
okay, anything else?
I would say good night at this point, everybody. This is all again.
You just want everyone.
What's that?
During the journey, it may go.
Well, you guys got to vote. That's why I'm building.
And you would recuse yourself.
It's nice to see you.
I'm still going to sit here.
You get away that easy.
Yeah.
He's staying with us.
All right.
Do we have any more discussion before we take a vote on motion?
Need open to the public.
No, I'm sorry. We're open, may I have a motion to open to the public? So moved. Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
This plan is now open to the public. If you would like to come up and ask any questions.
That's you, Ron.
Party of one. Okay. Not seeing anyone? Social opposed?
Motion closed.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The public portion is now closed. Now, do we have a motion or any more discussion about the fair share plan and housing element?
I did, but we can just do it. That's fine. Okay. We'll memorialize it for resolution.
You want me to make it?
Yeah.
Hello?
I'll make a motion that we accept the plan proposed to be endorsed by the council tomorrow.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call vote, Sarah?
Okay, Mr. Fenimore?
Approved.
Mr. Schmidt?
Approved.
Vice Chair Talon?
Approved.
Mr. Basile?
Approved.
Mr. Rosasti?
Approved.
Mr. Dixon?
Approved.
Mr. Bishop?
very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
So now we have the actual public comment, right? Okay, now we're gonna open for any public comment. Mr. Ron? Somebody like to make a motion to open to the public?
I'll make a motion to open to the public.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have any public comment?
No.
Make a motion to close.
13 years.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public portion now closed. Do I have your motions to adjourn? Heck yeah.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Enthusiastic.
All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned. Judge.